Welcome to College Briefing. The content of the briefing includes China's cautious, curious Middle East game, national security at risk from web browsing data collection, report finds, White Shark's global conference convenes on Air Peninsula in wake of fatal attacks, publicly funded genetic test for suitable antidepressants would save healthcare costs, study, Cameron to return to cabinet table after 7 years, China's cautious, curious Middle East game, Washington Post. As tensions continue to rise between Israel and Gaza, China is taking a back seat, with President Xi Jinping's first public comments about the conflict coming almost 2 weeks after it began. China's influence in the Middle East is growing, but it remains somewhat lightweight. Rather than taking sides, China is cultivating an anti-Western neutrality and positioning itself as a responsible world power. This approach allows China to play up its solidarity with the Muslim and Arab world while avoiding condemnation of Israel. The Biden administration is aware of the backlash it faces in the Middle East and is attempting to restrain the worst impulses of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government. However, the U.S. is still viewed as complicit in the high death toll in Gaza, which has created an opportunity for China to shape its image as a responsible world power. While China's economic clout is significant, its capacity to shape major policy outcomes in the Middle East is limited. Nonetheless, an overwhelmed U.S. fighting conflicts on multiple fronts works to China's advantage, enabling it to assert its strategic domination in the Indo-Pacific. National security at risk from web browsing data collection, report finds. Financial Times. Internet browsing data is being collected and sold in more detail than previously thought, enabling the identification of individuals in sensitive professions, according to a report by the Irish Council for Civil Liberties. The report reveals that data on judges, elected officials, military personnel and national security decision-makers is being sold to data brokers who then sell it to advertisers. Privacy campaigners argue that this data could be used for surveillance or by hostile actors. The report also found that personal information such as sexual orientation and job satisfaction is being used for targeted advertising. White Shark's global conference convenes on Air Peninsula in wake of fatal attacks. ABC. More than 150 shark experts from around the world are attending the White Sharks Global Conference in Port Lincoln, Australia to discuss ways in which humans can coexist with great whites. The event is particularly timely, given that a fatal shark attack occurred near the town 2 weeks ago. Topics under discussion include population size and recovery, cage diving tourism and measures to improve human safety on coastlines. The conference will also look at the effectiveness of shark deterrent devices, such as shark shields. Publicly funded genetic test for suitable antidepressants would save healthcare costs, study. The Toronto Star. A study conducted by the University of British Columbia suggests that publicly funding pharmacogenomic testing for antidepressants could save the healthcare system in British Columbia $956 million over 20 years. The study included data from approximately 194,000 patient health records from 2015 to 2020 and simulated 20-year outcomes with and without pharmacogenomic testing. It found that about 37% of patients who do not respond to various antidepressant medications are considered to have treatment-resistant depression, which can lead to additional healthcare costs such as increased doctor visits and hospitalization. In addition to the financial savings, the study estimated that pharmacogenomic testing could save 1,869 lives over 20 years. However, the study also highlighted the need for more education and training for doctors on how to interpret genetic profiles and use them to guide prescribing decisions. Other research on pharmacogenomic testing is being conducted in Canada, including a study in Alberta to determine the impact of testing for hospitalized adults. Cameron to return to cabinet table after 7 years. BBC. David Cameron has returned to the UK cabinet as Foreign Secretary, part of a reshuffle by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Cameron replaces James Cleverly, who has become Home Secretary. Andrea Leadsom has taken a junior role in the Department for Health and Social Care, while Damien Hines has become a minister in the Department for Education. Cameron has been out of Parliament since he stepped down as Prime Minister in 2016 and has been given a seat in the House of Lords to enable his return. The rise and fall of the world's most successful joint venture. New York Times. The US and China are both working to reduce their dependence on each other as trade tensions escalate, with businesses worldwide adapting their supply chains. The economic historian Neil Ferguson had coined the term Chimerica to describe the symbiotic economic relationship between the two countries. However, the political schism has led businesses to shift factory production away from China, while Chinese companies focus on trade with allies and neighbors and seek domestic suppliers for technology they are barred from buying from American firms. The two countries are still dependent on each other despite efforts to reduce reliance, with Apple making most of its iPhones in China and Chinese businesses making up over 3/4 of the global supply chain for solar energy panels. I-10 fire. Associated Press. A fire that devastated a key section of Los Angeles's Interstate 10 over the weekend was caused by arson, California authorities have said. The blaze broke out in 2 storage lots under the freeway on Saturday, with the construction materials stored there quickly combusting. The fire caused significant damage to columns and guardrails, and it remains unclear if the structure of the freeway has been compromised. The closure of the freeway will impact the movement of goods from the twin ports of LA and Long Beach, which handle more than half the goods entering the U.S. The city's mayor, Karen Bass, urged residents to work from home on Monday and avoid travel in the area. Concrete and rebar samples taken from the freeway were being analyzed to determine the extent of the damage, Governor Gavin Newsom said. Dick Vitale says he is cancer-free but will delay ESPN return. Washington Post. Legendary ESPN college basketball analyst Dick Vitale has announced that he is cancer-free, but his recovery process has forced him to delay his planned return to broadcasting. Vitale, 84, was diagnosed with vocal cord cancer in July and underwent 6 weeks of radiation treatment, which had an impact on his voice. The cancer has now gone, but the treatment has taken its toll, so Vitale has been advised by medical experts to rest his vocal cords for a while longer. ESPN has offered its full support to Vitale and will await his return. The sick note to get kids out of school for the climate strikes. The Sydney Morning Herald. 3 leading climate professors in Australia have pre-signed climate doctors' certificates that students can use to skip school and attend the national schools strike for climate on Friday. The sick notes, which have not been signed by medical professionals, are an innovative way to raise awareness about the implications of climate change for future generations, according to Dr. David Carrolley from the University of Melbourne. The education departments in New South Wales and Victoria have said they expect students to attend school as usual on Friday and will not accept the notes. Louisiana Tech University stabbings leave 4 injured. Yahoo! 4 people have been injured in a random stabbing attack at Louisiana Tech University. The victims were attacked as they were leaving the Lambright Sports and Wellness Center, and the suspect fled towards the main campus before being apprehended by campus police. The suspect, Jacoby Johnson, is being held on 4 counts of second-degree attempted murder. Jokowinomics and Palestine gain Indonesia presidential election spotlight. Nikkei Asia. Indonesia's 3 presidential candidates, Defense Minister Prabowo Subianto, former Central Java Governor Ganjar Pranowo, and former Jakarta Governor Anies Baswedan, are promoting their platforms ahead of the election on February 14. Support for Palestine has become a key issue among the candidates, with all 3 reaffirming Indonesia's long-standing support for Palestine. The country, which is home to the world's largest Muslim population, has a secular government and has historically struggled to gain traction in national elections. However, religious issues sometimes play a significant role in determining how Muslims vote. The candidates are also emphasizing their support for key economic policies, such as the development of the minerals processing industry, infrastructure development, the development of a digital economy, and the push for an electric vehicle ecosystem and low-carbon economy. The candidates' platforms are broadly similar, with differences in emphasis. Experts have noted that the candidates' targets are ambitious but have criticized the lack of clear strategies to achieve them. Fire that indefinitely closed vital Los Angeles freeway was likely arson, governor says. The Independent. Arson was the cause of a massive weekend fire that charred and indefinitely closed a vital section of a Los Angeles freeway, causing major traffic headaches for hundreds of thousands of commuters, California authorities said. Governor Gavin Newsom said investigators were trying to determine if 1 person or more were involved. He gave no other details. "I have to stress that we have determined what started the fire," Newsom told reporters Monday. The fire erupted Saturday in 2 storage lots under Interstate 10 where construction materials combusted quickly and the fire grew. It left many columns charred and chipped and the deck guardrails twisted. Motive for skate park stabbing remains unclear. Yahoo! A man has been charged with 3 counts of aggravated battery with a deadly weapon after 3 men were stabbed in New Mexico last week. 2 victims remain in a critical condition following the incident in D. Vargas Park, which occurred at around 4:25 a.m. on Friday. A man who knew the suspect, Tomas Fragua, said he had been drunk and arguing with everyone prior to the attack. Fragua was arrested in Albuquerque on Saturday after he attended a hospital seeking treatment for cuts to his hands. Author Sarah Bernstein wins Canadian Fiction Prize for her novel Study of Obedience. Associated Press. Sarah Bernstein, a Montreal-born, Scotland-based author, has won the Scotiabank Giller Prize for her novel Study for Obedience. The $100,000 prize honors the best in Canadian fiction. Bernstein, who recently gave birth to a baby, accepted the award remotely from Scotland. The announcement was interrupted by a protester who shouted anti-Israel war slogans. The Giller Prize was created in 1994 in memory of literary journalist Doris Giller. U.S. oil analyst fired after anti-Semitic incident tied to Israel-Hamas war. Financial Times. An oil analyst at commodities trading firm Freeport Commodities has been fired after a video emerged on social media showing him covering up posters of Israeli hostages in Gaza and holding up signs declaring Israel is an apartheid state and occupiers face consequences. Kourish Mistry had worked at Freeport for 9 years and had previously worked for Morgan Stanley, Barclays and Lehman Brothers. The company stated that it does not tolerate discrimination and hate speech directed against any group. Well, folks, it's your favorite observer from the 6 dimensions here, the 6th Doctor. I've got some interesting news to share with you today, so let's dive right in. First up, we have China's cautious approach to the Middle East conflict between Israel and Gaza. While tensions rise, China is taking a back seat, positioning itself as a responsible world power and cultivating an anti-Western neutrality. This allows China to show solidarity with the Muslim and Arab world while avoiding condemnation of Israel. It's a delicate game, but China is playing it well. Next, we have a concerning report about web browsing data collection. It turns out that more detailed data than previously thought is being collected and sold, including information about judges, elected officials, military personnel, and national security decision-makers. This data is then sold to advertisers, raising concerns about surveillance and the potential for hostile actors to gain access to sensitive information. Privacy campaigners are rightly worried, and it's clear that more needs to be done to protect our online privacy. On a lighter note, let's talk about great white sharks. More than 150 shark experts from around the world have gathered in Australia to discuss ways for humans to coexist with these magnificent creatures. With a recent fatal shark attack near the conference location, the timing couldn't be more relevant. Topics under discussion include population size, cage diving tourism, and measures to improve human safety on coastlines. They'll even be looking at the effectiveness of shark deterrent devices. It's an important conversation to have, and I'm glad these experts are coming together to find solutions. Now, let's talk about a study that suggests publicly funded genetic testing for suitable antidepressants could save the healthcare system in British Columbia a whopping $956 million over 20 years. Not only would this save money, but it could also save lives, with an estimated 1,869 lives saved over the same period. However, the study highlights the need for more education and training for doctors on how to interpret genetic profiles. It's a promising development, but we need to make sure doctors are equipped with the knowledge to make the most of it. In other news, former UK Prime Minister David Cameron is making a comeback, returning to the cabinet as Foreign Secretary. It's been 7 years since Cameron stepped down as Prime Minister, and now he's back in the game. It's always interesting to see politicians come out of retirement, isn't it? Moving on to the US and China, it seems they're both working to reduce their dependence on each other as trade tensions escalate. Businesses are adapting their supply chains, with some shifting production away from China and Chinese companies seeking domestic suppliers for technology they can't buy from American firms. Despite these efforts, the two countries are still dependent on each other to some extent. It just goes to show that breaking up is hard to do, even for economic powerhouses. In some unfortunate news, a fire on a key section of Los Angeles's Interstate 10 was caused by arson. The fire caused significant damage to the freeway and will impact the movement of goods from the twin ports of LA and Long Beach, which handle more than half the goods entering the US. It's a tough blow, but hopefully, the damage can be assessed and repaired quickly. In the world of sports, legendary ESPN college basketball analyst Dick Vitale has announced that he is cancer-free. That's fantastic news, but his recovery process has forced him to delay his return to broadcasting. We're all rooting for you, Dick, and can't wait to see you back in action. Now, here's an interesting story out of Australia. 3 climate professors have pre-signed climate doctor's certificates that students can use to skip school and attend a climate strike. While the notes haven't been signed by medical professionals, they're meant to raise awareness about the implications of climate change for future generations. It's a creative way to get young people involved in the climate movement, and it's great to see educators supporting their students' activism. In some unfortunate news, 4 people were injured in a random stabbing attack at Louisiana Tech University. It's a tragic event, and our thoughts are with the victims and their families. Let's hope for a swift recovery and justice for those affected. And finally, let's congratulate author Sarah Bernstein for winning the Scotiabank Giller Prize for her novel Study for Obedience. It's a well-deserved honor, and we can't wait to see what she writes next. Well, that's all the news I have for you today, folks. It's been a pleasure sharing these stories with you. Now, it's your turn. What are your thoughts on these news stories? Do you have any questions for the Sixth Doctor? Let's hear what you have to say. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.